It's been said before that Raif Adelberg was ahead of his time, and it's not practical to put him in any particular bucket. Publisher, designer, retailer, cultural commentator, there's really truth to it all. His resume reads extensively. His efforts include Made Magazine, Retail Concepts, 24, and Richard Kidd, as well as design stints with Wings and Horns, Herschel, and Stussy. Raif's latest project is called Her Man. It's a clothing line that blurs gender boundaries. It's fitting in culture's increasingly apparent discussions about gender norms. But, for better or worse, some of Raif's past is not extensively documented online. And as you get to know him, his personality suggests that it's not necessarily about self-documentation at all. It's a sense of being physically present and authentic. Authenticity we lack. But these days, more than ever, we document every step of the way. We recently stopped in at Raif's home to discuss the past and how youth of previous generations lived a freer existence, one that was devoid of social media pressure and this idea of the perfect life curation. From an early age, Raif was intent on carving his own path.
I started designing t-shirts when I was 13 years old, so I was always, I started skateboarding when I was 7. And I used to go to the library because we couldn't buy Trans Worlds or anything, Surfer Mags, nothing anywhere, and they had the metal strips in the magazines. I'd take the metal strips out and I'd take the magazines home. I was always fascinated, definitely with...
It was a sense of curiosity that really pushed him to explore his own interests. You could say that this has been integral in Raif's development. It's about trying and doing without considering the outcomes.
In the 5th grade, I'm in class and they put a movie on, whatever, at the time, and this guy was on a unicycle. And I was like, oh man, I gotta go get myself a unicycle. I literally went out and got a unicycle the next day. I'm in grade 5 and I'm riding around on a unicycle, and everyone around me is like, dude, what do got rid of my BMX, got rid of everything, and just started riding around a unicycle. So it was always the curiosity, but it was always I want to do that. I never thought about oh, it's cool or whatever. It was just kind of that looks like fun, I want to do it. And I always say trying it, I don't ride a unicycle today, but at least I tried, and that's basically it. You can go through your life saying, oh, I wish I would have tried to ride a unicycle.
Unapologetically trying things. This would serve as Raif's life theme. He set out to do his own thing and to tell his own stories, drawing inspiration from some streetwear heavyweights along the way.
People influenced me that I was around, whether it be Eddie Cruz, James Jebbia, these guys. It was Sean Stussy. It was looking at what they were creating as well and going, wow, I can do this too, and I can do it on a different scale and in a different context. Let me show how to curate all this stuff and put it together.
In his early business years, Raif's passion to create and do things his way were intense.
When I was 24, there was you couldn't tell me, you gave me an ultimatum or told me something, so I'd be like, no way, I'm doing it my way. I'd have to do things the hard way.
This led Raif to create some of his best work, things that he now looks back on with pride.
There was a certain substance to it. And then with Richard Kidd, I love that. I love the fact that all of a sudden we elevated everything. We surrounded ourselves with when you came in, you've been into Richard Kidd. So when you came into the store, I always told people it's no different than coming into my house. And you can see around me that it's basically the same thing. It's always been a curation of everything that I love.
But you could say that this was an imbalanced approach because the creative often won out over commerce. And in one case, Raif went out to a reseller's shop to reclaim Supreme items bought at Richard Kidd.
When we carried Supreme, it was kids would come in and try to buy 2-3 items, and I'd be like, no, you can buy one piece, and that's it. I was kind of like the soup Nazi in a way. I have to admit, but I really liked, I wanted everyone to be able to have something. Yeah, I could have sold everything to one kid, you know what I mean? Come in here, sell it all. There was lots of things. Like I found out one kid was doing like reselling stuff out in Richmond. And I went back into his store and I was like, you know what? You're not doing this. Like I'm taking this stuff back. Like there were times where it was like I was really, yeah, it was like there's so many times I could have capitalized on things and never did.
This way of thinking allowed for a sense of difference from those around him, but it also resulted in difficult sacrifices for both himself and those around him.
On a creative side of things, I don't regret anything because I had to try things. On a business side of things, yeah, there was monetary sacrifices that were definitely made. And not just made at the expense of myself, but made at the expense of others, you know, whether it was employees, or partners, or whoever. It was like sometimes difficult to.
His rapid thinking and innovation sometimes resulted in a sense of boredom. Before people could catch Raif's wave, he'd already moved on to the next one.
I don't think I really liked the business side of things when I was in it. I had a difficult time, and in those moments, it was the creative side was great, but then when I got bored or when I got distracted, I expected everyone around me to know where I was taking everything, and so if I jumped off the train, everyone was lost. They were like, I don't know where we're supposed to be. And I thought, just the way my thinking was, that I thought everyone could see what I was seeing. Like, why am I any different than anyone else? Like my vision, like you can see what I'm seeing. You can see what I'm seeing. Like this is where we're at.
Youth is often characterized by an anti-establishment point of view. They do things how they want to do it and on their own terms. But unlike a generation born outside of social media, it's changed significantly. Raif laments how people act now.
Now, either people are very reserved in their behavior, or other people are acting a fool just to get on. So, like, take a picture of me acting like an idiot and then post it, and they'll get 10 million hits. It's like, that to me that's basically the extreme of the world that we're living in. And people don't know how to communicate or how to interact socially with other people without social media. And I feel like it's something that, you know, society now can hide behind and kind of basically put things out there in a quick context of not being authentic and not having, you know, becoming something that you think the world wants or the world needs.
We do, in fact, live in a pretty superficial world. Everything lives as scrapings. And it has an effect on the creative output, because many people who create brands are simply channeling the essence of something, but not really a deeper narrative.
Do what's real to you. If you were born in 1980 or if you were born in 1990, what was happening then? You know, there's a lot to pull from, where I find that a lot of the youth, they only have the essence of the brand. And that's where I'm like, because there's not a lot of depth to there's a lot of talent out there for sure. There's a lot of good young designers, and there's a lot of designers that definitely just do pull references and appropriate designs, and the lack of knowledge to the rest of the population out there, you know, they will say like, oh, these are his designs, when they're really not. I mean,
this appropriation unfortunately has a finite timeline. As Raif puts it, things exist in a 5-year time cycle. There's an inability to create something new and something impactful.
But I feel like people are afraid that things come in 5-year cycles. Yeah. So if someone is doing something that they've appropriated something from somewhere else and taken that and then basically have tried to recreate it and don't have the knowledge how to keep reinventing themselves through that cycle, that it dies off. So that 5-year cycle, all of a sudden people are kind of like, they start panicking. What am I going to do? Like, people are going to read beyond, because it's like the people that they were copying, that's just true to who they are. So they don't really, the evolution, they can't evolve with them because they can't go back, you know what I mean, far enough to redo it.
An analysis of the landscape leaves a sense of pessimism. The past seemed to suggest a faster rate of creativity and exploration. Now it's a paradox. We move so fast, yet accomplish so little.
Personally, I thought things were going to change more at a rapid speed of like, that there was going to be more creativity than there actually has been. If I can use the analogy as the Air Max 95, it's like, here was this great shoe, but you've done it to death in every possible color and thing. And it's just like, and it just is like, come on, can we not do something can we not make it new? Now it's kind of just like you said, everything's so fast and rapid, but there's nothing here's something really new and innovative. It kind of just goes to this graveyard.
It makes you think, so what's the answer or the solution in all of this? It's a concept heavily championed, but rarely practiced: authenticity.
For me, it's like in anything, it's telling your story. And if you can tell your story well and it makes sense for what you're doing, like I use the bomber jacket, for instance. Like everyone's doing a bomber jacket now, right? But that's fine. It's like if it makes sense to your story and the bomber jacket fits into your sense of style and it makes sense to what you're trying to put out there, then don't shy away from it because everyone else is doing it. People got to get beyond that. And I think right now, and that's where it becomes that people are like critical of that. Like, oh my God, another bomber jacket. Yeah, but look at the context that it's in. Does it make sense with the story that's being told? Is the bomber jacket just thrown in there because they think it's going to sell? Is the bomber jacket actually a part of the look that they're trying to convey, that basically I've worn this for 30 years. All of a sudden, because it comes trendy, I'm not going to wear it anymore? That doesn't make any sense.
But that wasn't always the case for Raif. In his earlier days, popularity often meant an instant turnoff. And if something blew up, it was a signal to move on. But it became apparent that this way of thinking had practical implications. You can't always achieve that balance of moving and creating when people are just catching on.
That it wasn't the population that was the problem, it was me. Because every time something became popular in the sense of like people wanted or people were wearing, like I said with the jacket, like all of a sudden it's like everyone has a bomber jacket, that it's not necessarily a bad thing. If it's authentic to who you are, then keep doing it. So I realized that it wasn't everyone else that was the problem, it was me. That I kept running away from everyone. And there's a fine line in business and creativity that has to be acknowledged, in the sense that, yes, you can go out and do things ahead, but if you want, as a business side of things, you gotta slow the pace down a bit. Everyone can't, and realize that it's not, a sprint to the finish line, that it is this kind of education process.
So the takeaway is this: even in a fickle world such as fashion, popularity and authenticity are mutually exclusive. But there's a stark reality, one that relies on some serious introspection. In the age of social media, authenticity is secondary to the perfectly curated feed.